Okay, so today what we're talking about is a physical comparison with some of the basic features between the AX700 by Sony on the right and the good old AX100 on the left here, which is a camera that I've been using for many years. The AX700, of course, looking at these profiles, it's a little bigger, bulkier. They're kind of built off of the same central core, and if we're looking at these top multi-interface shoes, notice on the left the AX100 had a really tight entry there, and here on the AX700 you had more room to slide that microphone in there. And we use the external Sony add-on mics, and they're pretty nice. So looking at the front, we're looking at this Zeiss lens, which is an f2.8 when they're wide open. Both cameras have identical lenses and identical capabilities. As you zoom in, you're going to lose some of that wide open 2.8 because it's going to shut down to the 3s and 4s depending on how far zoomed out you are. But that is an excellent Zeiss lens. You cannot interchange these lenses on either of these cameras. Now we're looking at the right side of both, again, the AX100 on the left and the AX700 on the right. Notice that remote control. The remote control is identical for both of them. And another difference, of course, is on the AX700 they have that nice big rubber eyepiece so that you can look through the viewfinder without light straying. And another thing you notice is on the handle here on the Sony AX700 on the right, what's missing is that USB connection that used to stick in there on the old AX100. Again, close up of this remote, it's the RMT835, identical, unchanged. I'm not super excited about it because it is a line-of-sight remote. I would prefer a radio frequency remote. The other thing is both of the viewfinders tip up. I think physically the core that these are built off of are pretty much the same. And now we'll go over some of the connections and functions of the external buttons here. On the back of this AX700 on the right, you see that HDMI input. That used to be on the left with the AX100, so that's an improvement. DC in at the bottom, which is also where you charge it or where you run your AC adapter from. We have the record start and stop button here, and you have this new toggle here on the right. And I'll go over what that's for in a few minutes here. And we're looking at the battery connection on the left. On the right side here, you have that multi-connector. That is now a micro USB plug-in, and of course a 3.5mm headphone jack here. So this is the AX700. I like that USB comes off the side instead of through the handle as it was with the AX100. This is looking back at the AX100, and there's a full-size USB connection that you used to use to connect to your computer. Here's the handle on the AX700, which I plan to remove so that we can install this in the Ronin. I don't use this handle and I don't hold the camera that way when I'm shooting. Here's a remote interface jack too. So you just flip that off and the little receiver's there. Here's the left hand side of the Sony AX100. And here's the side of the AX700. They've added the menu button there on the left. Otherwise, the iris, ISO, and shutter speed are all the same. And then the 3.5mm headphone jack, which is on the left side also. The up front portions here, the zoom, the focus, auto, manual. So if you have it on focus where this one is, you use the ring on the front to focus manually. You can move it up to the zoom, manual, or auto. And you can, of course, control the zoom with the ring as well. And here again is the 3.5mm headphone jack on the AX700. And if we look back at the AX100, it was right next to that HDMI micro connection, which I will not miss. I like the full-size HDMI Type A connection, which now the AX700 has. And now we're looking at the control panels open on the left side here. And this again is looking back at the AX100. And the AX700 has more controls. It also has more slots for your SD cards. Here's back at the X100, you had one card, one slot, and if something happened or you ran out of time, you were simply stuck. The AB card slots here for the SD cards on the AX700 allow you to actually hot swap the cards. So while one card is writing, you would see an indicator light on here. You can pull one card and put in another and not miss a beat. I recommend really fast class 10 cards or better, 64 gig, 300 megabytes per second. On the listing for this camera, they offered a card with it. That card really is not suitable or fast enough for full 4K. Now we're looking at the fold-out screens of both cameras. The AX700 does have a much higher resolution screen, and it also does not function as a touch menu navigator the way the old AX100 does. And we're looking close here at the AX100. Notice the banding that you see vertically, because that's the screen resolution is a little lower here. And you're really going to notice a difference when we switch over to the AX700. But you did all your setup functions here on the open screen. You touched it. You went through the menu. The menu was very basic and simple and easily accessible. And then you got out of it. But there is an advantage now to this new AX700, which you have a much higher resolution screen. Notice there's no banding here. And you don't have to touch it for everything. What you can do is control it with that little toggle on the back there. And what's the advantage to that? Well, by going through your menu with this little stick here, pushing it is a select, and of course moving up or down the menu, left or right through the menu, is how you control it. But you can actually close that side panel, which you could not do with the X100, and still navigate the menu by looking through the eyepiece. The electronic viewfinder in this camera is also really nice, high resolution. I was very impressed with it. So the ability to close it up and only be looking through the eyepiece and navigate the menu. If you're in a dark space somewhere, you're not going to be distracting other people, and you don't need to touch the screen to navigate. The DC in again at the bottom, HDMI opening port here coming out the back makes it perfect for my Ronin. The old HDMI connection on the left side of the AX100 made it difficult to run a screen off of the Ronin. If you don't know what a Ronin is, that's a system that stabilizes your camera so that you can run and gun with it. Now also they'll fold flat, both the same, against the side of the body, so you can view from the side while you're videoing something. And of course the touch screen on the left is an advantage here. You have to actually control it with, again, that little joystick on the back on the AX700. So you're not going to be navigating menus here by pushing. You're also not going to start and stop recording by touching the screen, which you could do on the AX700, on the X100, I'm sorry. Physically, this is what they look like. This is a lot of power and a lot of capability in a compact design. So even with the AX700 and all of its amendments here, it's a little bigger, a little bulkier, but it is still a super tight, super small camera, and in my opinion, an excellent camera, even if you want to do some commercial work with it. I think these are fantastic. AX700, excellent camera. Get one if you have the money. If you already have the AX100, I don't know if I would jump ship to the AX700, but there are some benefits too if you look at the specs. Thanks for watching.